Welcome back to Missing. I am Tim here today with Lance. Lance, how are you today?
I'm doing really well today, Tim. I'm really happy to be presenting this conversation to the listeners. Speaking of the listeners, I hope they're doing just as fantastic as I am and are looking forward to this conversation as well. How are you, Tim?
I am doing great over here, Lance. I'm excited to bring our audience this conversation about Mike Montijo. It is a lesser-known missing persons case. It's from Ridgeville, South Carolina. He went missing on January 26th, 2020. He is currently 58 years old. He was 55 when he went missing. He is a white male, about 5'5", 165 pounds. And in this conversation, we speak with his sister, Belinda.
And I know we've said it many times before, but whenever we have the opportunity to have family members on, family members of missing individuals, we always realize how important that is, not only to our listeners, but to that particular individual on the show, the missing person's family members. And we've been trying to get people to leave supportive comments on anywhere that you can comment when you listen or watch. On YouTube is a pretty good place to do this because we do know that the family members and the extended family read these. And if there's any constructive criticism, anything that you'd like to say in support of the family or that person, please feel free to leave that. It does do a lot of good that you might not expect.
Absolutely. And there is a GoFundMe in Mike Montijo's case, and it's for a billboard and for attorney fees. And so Belinda has set this up. It is on GoFundMe. You can find it at Mike Montijo, billboard and or attorney fees. And there's a link in the show notes.
And we are joined by Lou Berry, who is a former police chief in Massachusetts. That's been his entire career, his entire professional life has been in law enforcement. And Mike was in the Navy, and he had other special ops assignments that he did. And Lou makes an excellent point towards the end of the episode that you want to stick around for. I think it is incredibly important to hear what Lou has to say, and it really puts things into perspective.
And this case came into us by way of Private Investigations for the Missing, so you can check out everything that they do at investigationsforthemissing.org, and please follow their social media pages. There are links in the show notes.
Tim, where can people follow us if they're looking to follow us on social media?
They can find us at Missing CSM on social media. Thanks a lot for listening, everybody. We really appreciate it. Belinda and Lou, thank you so much for joining us here today on Missing. We really appreciate it. How are you both doing today?
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us on here. I'm doing well.
And Lou, it's always a delight to have you on the show. I don't think you really know the cult following you're establishing amongst the true crime community, but you're becoming a bit of a legend. So it's always nice to have a growing legend on the show. And Belinda, thank you for joining us. I wish that we could have people on because we were talking about something that wasn't a missing person, a tragedy, or something like that. It's a pleasure to meet you despite the circumstances in which we're meeting.
Nice to meet you too. And yeah, I mean, it's what you do. So,
and anything that we can put out there in regards to Michael, this is why you're here. So it's technically your platform, and we're just going to be guiding you through the details. And hopefully we can get enough information out there where people can hear it, and maybe something will jog in someone's memory, which will lead to some conclusion.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, and tell us a little bit about Mike. How is your relationship, and what is he like?
Mike was a 20-year retired Navy veteran. Yeah, he was a good guy. He would help people out as much as he could. When he's in South Carolina, I don't think he really had a lot of friends down there, because he had already retired from the Navy when he moved down there. He had a few. He wouldn't just up and leave his stuff. He was a homebody, he wouldn't just disappear. He was always there for me and, our brothers and, his stepson. He raised him like his own. It's really kind of heartbreaking here.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. And Mike, does he go by Mike or Michael?
He goes by Mike.
Mike, okay. And Mike is your brother, and you said that you have other siblings. What's the family dynamic like? How many siblings do you have?
I have 2 brothers and 1 sister. We're scattered all over the country. I'd go see Mike the most, and he'd come see me the most. We were the closest. He even gave me away when I got married. So, that was our relationship. It was very close. So, And he was highly regarded in the Navy. I had so many people reaching out to me, inquiring about him, and they still do, wanting to know what happened to him and telling me how much that he had taken them under their wing and helped them out, whenever they were in the Navy and, mentored them. So, that says something for itself right there.
Totally does. And what motivated him to enlist in the Navy, and when was that, and how long did he serve?
He enlisted when he was 18, right out of high school. He wrestled in high school and he was trying to get a scholarship and he didn't get one. So, we grew up in Kansas, not a lot of options in the middle of Kansas. So he joined the Navy. Yeah, he was a chief petty officer when he retired. So he was in there for 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah. How was he as a wrestler?
He was pretty good. We're small, so he wrestled in the lower weight classes. So yeah, he was pretty good. Lots of trophies and medals at my grandparents' house.
That's awesome. When we were looking into him, they list the statistics, and he was listed as 5'5", I think about 165 pounds. So when you said he was a wrestler, I just pictured like a small, stocky, tough to pin type wrestler.
You got it.
What brought him to South Carolina? The town he lived in was Ridgeville, South Carolina?
He served there at Goose Creek for quite a few years, and that's where he met his wife. And then when he retired, they moved back down there onto her parents' land, put a home there.
Where did the family grow up?
In Kansas.
Okay. So you all kind of moved around. And so Mike was married. Was he married when he went missing?
Yes. His wife was the last one to see him.
Had he been experiencing any sort of emotional distress or anything of the sort?
I don't know. I mean, the last time I talked to him, and I talked to my dad too, because he loved football. Kansas City Chiefs were his team. And so they would talk every Sunday. He told me that he had drinking problems and, he couldn't kick the problem. And he was going to go get some help at the VA. The last time I talked to him, and he, was trying to get over, his alcoholism. So, and he'd had several, bouts. I mean, the last time I talked to him and my dad, he sounded fine. I think he probably had some PTSD, and he used to always say he couldn't talk to anybody because, his security clearance. I'm like, you can talk to a psychologist. They won't say anything. So he also worked in Rhode Island at the warfare division for a while. So, he had a pretty high security clearance. And when he's in the Navy, he was on those nuclear subs and he couldn't even tell us where he was going. So,
yeah, it's unfortunate. We hear stories like that all the time where a certain generation or even just a certain occupation will just embed itself so deeply in somebody that they are not able to talk to anybody, including a psychologist or a therapist. That's actually more threatening to them because it's intimidating. And what's the easiest thing to turn to self-medicate? And it's, alcohol. It's legal. You can get it anywhere, and it is incredibly damaging. But he was trying to get help for that by going to the VA, you said, right?
Yes.
And you mentioned he was a Kansas City Chiefs fan, a big one. I don't mean to make this into a sports podcast, but they were a week away from playing in the Super Bowl when he went missing.
You are correct. There is no way he would have missed that game for the world. He even had a bedroom that was decorated in Kansas City Chiefs theme, his spare bedroom. So, yeah, no way.
Interesting. So, well, what does that tell you?
I was told that he was trying to quit drinking and that he started hallucinating, and that's what he told his wife. And we don't know if he just wandered off. I mean, he left the house without his keys, his cell phone, obviously his vehicle was there, his wallet, and they lived out in the country. So he usually carried his handgun with him whenever he went out, just in case he ran across snakes or anything. And he didn't take his gun either. I mean, I don't even think he had his glasses. So I'm not really sure what happened. I wasn't there, and I relied on the family and the law enforcement, thinking they would do the investigation correctly. But I don't know if he just wandered off, and if the people down there just didn't care enough because of his drinking to try and find him. They were just glad he was gone, or if something happened. I don't know.
Well, it'd be super unfortunate if it was that they didn't care enough because of his drinking. I mean, you can't just write somebody off because they have a disease. and
I
that is a
know.
disease.
I couldn't even get them to put up posters or flyers or anything. I got told we took the cell phone up to the school and showed his picture around. I'm like, really? Can't you put up some flyers somewhere? And it never happened. I was told they were going to, but they didn't. So
the official investigation left a lot to be desired.
correct. They did go out and do a search, and that was because we were trying to get a search party together. They initially had search dogs out, and I got like 3 different answers for where they went and searched, and I just kind of gave up on that, trying to get an answer on that. And we were getting a search party together, and the sheriff's department got what is it, like the natural resources people. I can't remember what they're called exactly. They went out and did a search supposedly, and I don't think they did it. I was told by someone that's was in the sheriff's department, they're not anymore, that they did not even do a very thorough search. It was just to appease us. And I contacted a group of cadaver dogs to see if they could go out, a couple months later, and they contacted the sheriff's department, never heard back from them, so that was probably a no, or they didn't answer them. It took them, I kept bugging them to go get his laptop and cell phone, and it took them a month and a half to go get that, I think, something like that. It took them a long time to go get it, to send it in to, check it out. They took his wife in to ask her about financials and stuff, but that took like at least a month too for that as well. Yeah, very slow, to me, it was like not a very good investigation. And I had looked up as soon as he went missing what to do. And one of the things it said was to hire a private investigator to help him. And so I asked the wife if we could hire a private investigator, get a GoFundMe going. And she told me, and she said it kind of rudely, that I have the money to hire a private investigator, but I would rather drag the river instead. So
that's interesting. And you're talking about the river that's right there.
The Edisto.
Edisto. Okay.
Yes.
Is that a big river?
Oh, yes.
Okay. He, I don't know if we actually said that maybe we did and I missed it. He's been missing since January 26, 2020. So we're coming up on 3 years now.
3 years. Yes. And that was another issue, the pandemic shut everything down. And so that caused huge problems right there. Huge problems.
Yeah.
So.
And there's an account of him being seen at a convenience store that morning. Is that accurate?
No. I think Lou has a report on that.
Correct.
Didn't they say they weren't even open that day, Lou?
Yeah, he, went missing, or was last seen on the morning of the 26th, and it was reported to the sheriff's department on the 27th. And they went to a place called Jellicoe's, which is a local bar / convenience store fairly close by. And allegedly he had been there the night before, which would have been the night of the 28th. Around there somewhere. And anyways, to make a long story short, our investigator that was assigned interviewed the owner and the employee, and neither one said that they were even open the day that they were supposedly asked about him being there the night before. So it just doesn't seem that there's a big discrepancy there. Believe that either they had the wrong time period entirely when they supposedly talked to the owners, but the owner and the employee both indicated that they had never been interviewed.
Okay, so it sounds like a little bit of a mystery how that got part of the main reporting in Mike's case.
Correct.
Yeah, and I think part of the problem is the store itself is located right on the county line in the next county. So there was some jurisdictional issues, perhaps. I can't explain the discrepancy, except to say that we've pretty much discounted that sighting completely.
Oh, okay. So no one saw him after his wife saw him when he left or went missing on January 26th.
Not as
Correct.
far as
that we know of. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, she went to work at 6:30 in the morning and came back about 6:30 that night, and he was gone.
I see.
Did she say he was asleep when she left?
She said that he was awake and that he told her he thought he was seeing things again. So, I don't know.
In one of the reports, getting back to the convenience store, it says that he left in an older model gold Buick vehicle. Is that indeed his car?
No, he drove a Ford Escape, a newer model. So he didn't have his keys. His car still was at the house.
Wow. So he didn't leave in his car or the gold car that we know of.
I believe that statement referred to someone else's vehicle that he was seen getting in, not his. And there is a gold Buick that is occasionally at that location, but that was located. The operator was interviewed and doesn't know him, and it was just not relevant.
And when you say the operator was interviewed, was the operator interviewed by the private investigator or by law enforcement or both?
By the law enforcement.
Okay. And that information comes to you. Like, how did you get that information?
Well, when Belinda initially contacted us back in October of last year, and it was reviewed in the board of directors of private investigation for the missing, determined that that was a case we would get involved in. The first thing I did was contact the sheriff's department, which is Colleton County Sheriff's Department down South Carolina. That's the same county, by the way, where the Murdoch case took place in South Carolina. And I initially spoke to the captain who's in charge of detectives, and he was very cooperative and forwarded me the police reports, the initial reports anyways. And our investigator followed up with some of that information. And if I recall, he determined that there was an individual who was there occasionally that drove a gold Buick, but that had been pretty much ruled out as being involved.
Okay. There is a private investigator that is working the case, as you mentioned, and this individual is not joining us during this conversation. So, Lou, you're sort of speaking in place of this person. Is that correct?
That is correct. The investigator, extremely professional, extremely competent, extremely well qualified. He's a retired investigator from a major city in the Northeast, extensive experience doing homicide investigations. And we were fortunate to not only locate him, but to get him to work for us on this case. He did a very, very thorough investigation, went as far as he could go, submitted a great report, but he, by nature of his prior employment, would rather not become public as to his identity, which we respect, obviously. So that's why I'm kind of relaying his report, or what I can in his report, to you for him on his behalf.
And you said something interesting before we started recording. You said that this investigator was one of the best that you've ever worked with in 40 years.
Absolutely. He's top notch. I can't say enough about his capabilities, his professionalism, and his experience. It's just, like I said, in 40 years of investigating, both in law enforcement and in the civilian side, he is the best. He really is. He's just very, 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 very adept at what he does.
And Belinda, how was your experience with the investigator?
Oh, it was awesome. Like I said, he kept me informed every step of the way, and he would come up with ideas and ask me, and of course he had to run them by Lou as to what he could do. So he was great. I mean, he went as far as he could, and when law enforcement isn't going to cooperate, then there's not you can only go so far. So I'm from what I understand, they quit returning calls and cooperating, which is what they did with me and my father and sister as well.
One thing about private investigating in cases like this, we can only go so far. We can uncover facts and get information, but we can't prosecute cases. We can't convene a grand jury. We can't do a lot of things that law enforcement can do. So basically what we're doing for the families is investigating and turning our information over to law enforcement. In this particular case, beyond that initial communication, have been unable to get a telephone call returned. We've been unable to get any cooperation or communication with the sheriff's department whatsoever, which is unfortunate because I think for the family's sake and his friend's sake, our investigators done a very thorough job in developing the fact that this case requires some in-depth police investigation. But aside from that, I don't know what else we can do. And as I spoke to Belinda, we've just about done all we can. I don't know what else we can do in this particular case. And it's too bad. I mean, aside from his family, the Submariners are a tight group. And he's got a lot of friends out there that also would like to know what happened to him. And it's unfortunate that we can't get any answers.
Can you explain what the town's like? Is it a big town? Is it a little town? Are there a lot of town politics? And is there a lot of violence or a lot of suicides that you know of?
It's a small town. It's mostly country. There's not really much there.
And there's no local police department. It's the sheriff's department that is the law enforcement agency.
And as far as you know, it doesn't have a high crime rate or an unusually high suicide rate or anything?
No, not really. I mean, here's an interesting fact. I was calling to talk to the detective to ask him about my brother. And anyway, he answered the call, and I guess he thought he viewed me or whatever, but I heard him talking to somebody and said, well, don't spend a lot of time looking for him because he's anti-law enforcement. So I guess they find somebody else. And whoever they told them not to spend a lot of time looking for him. And here I am calling about my missing brother, and I hear this. I mean, it doesn't paint a very, good picture of, law enforcement for me. Plus, they lied to us about so many things. So,
well, sorry to hear that.
they're not all like that, and I know this. I know it's
Yeah.
a small town, and it's just county, and they, probably don't have a lot of resources. But, all I really wanted was some cadaver dogs and stuff to go out there and search, and they just didn't even want to do that. So, and it wouldn't even been them. It would have been a different organization. So,
Well, it's just to address your question. I just looked in the crime rate there was 5 violent crimes and 25 property crimes in that particular town.
Like in that year?
Like in that year.
Oh, wow.
So pretty light on the crime down there.
yes.
And we'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
Thanks to our sponsors, and now we're back to the program. And we talked a little bit about the area in where Mike went missing. It seems pretty woodsy.
Yeah, there's a lot of marshland. It's low. They call it low country. It's low-lying land, and unfortunately, that year it rained a lot too and flooded a lot, and so some of the areas were not easily accessible. And so we were trying to get, like I said, get in there, or I was trying to get someone in there after the water had receded, to see if maybe he was, back in there somewhere in the woods.
You mentioned one official search. Do you know where they searched?
We were going to do a search on the neighboring person's property. They had a pond that his son told us he liked to go walk to, and you'd look around. And so I got permission from the landowner to go do the search. And then the sheriff's department found out we were going to go do the search and got I think it was the natural resources. I had actually emailed them as well. And anyway, they went out there and said they searched and sent people in the water and stuff too. So I don't know if they did. I mean, we weren't there. So that's just what they said.
You mentioned that he told his wife that he was hallucinating again. And I have a couple of questions that kind of fall in line with that. Was this hallucination, if he was having it again, were these hallucinations induced by him trying to quit alcohol and he was going through withdrawals?
Yes, that's what she was saying.
Right. Okay. So at the time he's seeing things, he's hallucinating because his body is going through the alcohol withdrawals because he's trying to not drink.
Correct.
Yeah. And if someone is like that serious of an alcoholic, you typically at that point don't want to leave them to their own devices. That's
Correct.
like the toughest time.
Because he's tried to quit several times on his own, which, you can't really do. So they had went to the hospital, and he'd actually started having seizures when the last time. And so that's my concern as well. Why would you leave when this happened before, and he could have very well died if they hadn't went to the hospital?
It's a good point. When he was in the program at the VA, did they provide him with a sponsor?
He'd actually done AA before several times. This was his first time to try and go and get a psych evaluation and stuff through the VA.
Oh, I see. So I gotcha. So the psych evaluation was a VA, but he had done a program with the AA.
Yes.
And did he keep in touch with the sponsor?
Not usually, no. I mean,
right.
It's you quit for a while and then start up. I mean, it's some people just can't shake it. They have more addictive personalities than other people. So, they're trying to quiet the voices in their mind.
Had he ever wandered away before?
No. Actually, we had an advocate that asked his wife that. She said the furthest he had ever wandered was like, it wasn't very far because they had, her parents had horses and cows and stuff. And they had like, a little barn area, and that's the furthest he had went, which wasn't far. It's just like on their land up the road a little bit, but actually just a driveway.
There's a number of red flags, if you will, that indicate to us, I think, that things may not be as they were initially reported. Number one, given his alleged condition, when it was found that he was missing, a police report wasn't made until the next day. Now, given his medical condition, you would think immediately that would be the first thing you would do is notify the police, hey, he's missing, and he's suffering from potential alcohol withdrawal or whatever. But that wasn't done for an entire day. Secondly, the security camera on the residence or the trailer was not working that particular day for some reason. And there's a number of other red flags there that indicate that perhaps, that require further investigation. People that weren't interviewed that should have been interviewed. Just the fact that he left behind his wallet, his glasses, his keys, his chewing tobacco, to me indicates it's not a voluntary disappearance. I mean, he's obviously not gone to put a new life together for himself. His veterans checks haven't, as far as we know, that a bank account hasn't been touched since he went missing by him. So, it all adds up to something tragic most likely happened to Mike. So to classify this as solely as a missing person case, it doesn't do justice, I don't believe, to what potentially happened. Further, to make things a little bit cloudy, there's a bullet hole in the side of the trailer that was covered with duct tape.
Really? And when had that happened?
We don't know. The explanation is in one of his deliriums, he thought was shooting at something in his bathroom that he believed he saw. We don't know.
Belinda, are those hallucinations something you've heard of before? You think is real?
Yes, I mean, his wife called me when, like I said, the last time when he had seizures, was having them really bad. But and he didn't deny it when I talked to him, when he got out of the hospital. So I'm sure that's what happened. But, like you said, why would somebody leave if they knew they got that bad? And, I realize living with somebody with like that has these can't be easy, but if you don't make them get help, then you're just enabling them. But, even though it's not easy, you don't just not look for somebody because you're tired of dealing with their issues.
Yeah, and how was Mike's marriage, if you don't mind me asking?
As far as I know, I mean, he loved her, and I know when he was drinking, it could be difficult. I know this. He could, be a rude person. I would take up for her whenever I was around, and if he would, get like that, I was like, dude, stop, But I don't think he was really abusive. Even if he did try to get that way when he was drunk, he would get so drunk that he probably couldn't have done anything to anybody. They just had an anniversary. I don't remember which one. It was in December, like quite a few years they'd been married, and he'd gotten her flowers and stuff. And, I'm sure just like anybody else that is dealing with addiction in the family, it had its ups and downs, I'm sure.
I'm curious about the bullet hole in the trailer. And he said that he thought that he knew he was hallucinating and he thought that he was shooting at something. Was the bullet hole like an exit hole or was it the other way? Like, was he shooting from the inside?
That's what I was told. But somebody who saw the bullet hole told me that it looked like it was from the outside going in. I don't know. I didn't, stupid me. I should have went to South Carolina, but I thought I thought the people that were there would make more of an effort to look for him. Hindsight's 2020. Anybody that's out of state and has a missing person, you think the other loved ones are going to look for them? Go do it yourself.
I don't believe any forensic exam was done on this trailer.
Nope. They did not even go inside that trailer, I don't think.
Lou, is that something you could tell if you saw pictures, though, of the bullet hole from inside and from outside?
It's hard to say. It's possibly, I mean, it depends on a lot of factors. And so I wouldn't want to venture a guess. I think, that's what forensic people are for, and ballistic people are for. I wouldn't want to speculate on that. But I don't understand why a forensic exam wasn't done. That is beyond my comprehension at this point.
Yeah, I think the reason I asked is because he didn't take any of his firearms, right?
No, not that we're aware of.
Right. So if he had been in a state where he was hallucinating, if he was inside or outside and he thought that he was shooting at something, this wasn't the same type of hallucination. Because if he was previously hallucinating and felt he needed to shoot whatever he was hallucinating, this was different because he felt like he needed to just get away.
Right. And that's what happened the last time. He felt like he just needed to get away. So they had to load up in the car and leave. And his wife took him to the hospital. They were so bad. But yeah, they had to load up the dogs and everything and leave is what happened.
So that sounds like that was the case this time, and probably pretty fast if he didn't take any of those items, including something that, you had said that he would typically just carry his, I think you said his sidearm or his handgun just in case he saw a snake or something.
Right. Yeah. If he was going to, because he had deer stands and stuff. So if he was going to go out to those or anything,
And are you still in touch with his wife?
No, I think she thinks I'm out to get her and point her as the bad guy in this. And I'm really not. I just feel like she didn't care enough. She may have, I don't know. That's just, I'm the one who's been contacting everybody, and me and my daughter were trying to find someone when he first went missing. And, my dad and my sister, our sister, we're the ones who kept blowing up the sheriff's department. We were the ones pushing. And I kind of feel like without her pushing the sheriff's department as well, they were just kind of pushing us off to the side, because she wasn't really looking.
So she didn't seem to push in the same way that you and the rest of your family did.
No.
Any ideas on why?
Well, like I said previously, and unless she was just done with him and was glad he was not there, I don't know. The other alternative, I'm not going to say, because I'm not going to point fingers at people and say they did something when they didn't. That's just not me.
Did anybody in his immediate orbit, like anyone that his wife or her family, was anybody ever concerned that he was prone to go into those states of hallucinating and he still had these weapons? Because you said that he had hunting stands in the woods as well, so he probably had maybe a rifle or two.
Oh, he had guns. He was a small firearms instructor in the Navy, so yeah, he had guns. I'm not sure how many. They were all in a gun safe.
Oh, okay.
I was told none of them were missing. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Was he on any medication?
Just, for like high blood pressure, cholesterol, normal stuff for people that are getting on up there in age.
If he was alone during the day when his wife wasn't there and he was having these hallucinations and felt like he needed to leave, what do you think he would have done? Like, was there a friend or a neighbor that he could rely on for rides or something like that?
Not anybody that I don't think there was anybody that he would go to. I don't know. There was let's just say family member of April's that lived at the end of the driveway, his too, but it was, through her family. And then her parents lived on some of the property too, not too far away, but I don't know if they were home. I don't know. I don't think he would go ask them for help. The relationship with her parents was not that good. And I don't know about the other lady, if he'd go ask her or not. I don't know. Honestly, don't know if he'd go ask anybody. They had game cameras too, and all the game cameras had the SD cards pulled that day.
Who pulled those?
Well, I guess they were her family's, April's parents' game cameras, and none of the cards were in them. Supposedly that day they'd taken them out. It's just too many questions and not enough answers for me.
I just want to make sure I understand this. So the game cameras are cameras that are set up to capture deer and wild boar or any sort of animal that one would hunt?
Yes.
Recorded on like a little SD card?
Yes, that's correct.
No SD cards in those cameras the next morning?
There were none in there that day, correct.
And how many cameras?
I'm not sure. I don't know. They didn't give me that information.
Okay, but sounds like at least a couple.
Yeah, I'm sure they had them wherever the deer stands were too.
Right.
So, and on the trails.
How many deer stands are there?
I know he had one. I don't know if there were others out there or not. So.
Okay, and these are cameras that will typically run all the time?
I'm not sure if they run all the time or if they're motion activated, which is what a lot of them are now.
Usually they're motion activated, either for still pictures or video, depending on how modern they are and everything. Some can be monitored remotely, depends how sophisticated they are. But in any event, these sound like they had the SD cards and they were just not operable that day.
Is there a hunting season or seasons?
I'm sure there is. I mean, here in Texas, it's bow season usually starts in October, and then I think gun season in November. So, it's warmer in South Carolina too. So theirs is probably later in the year as well. I'm not sure. All states are different.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine that these cameras are placed in an area where they've typically seen whatever game they're hunting, or they know that this might be a path where the game goes through and is probably near the deer stands, I would imagine.
Probably. Yeah, I would imagine. I don't know how many they had up or, how many cameras they have on the property. So
And they had one in their own property as well.
on the back door, I'm not sure if they had one on the front door too. I was just told about the one on the back door that I was told that it was old and it was not working that day. And it looks like he went out the back door is what I was told.
Do you know how soon before it had been working?
No,
If I had a nickel for every time a camera just didn't work on the day that somebody disappeared,
you'd be rich, wouldn't you?
I mean, this month alone. And we'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
Thanks to our sponsors, and now we're back to the program. You mentioned that Mike's glasses were still there at his house.
Yes. So the police didn't even go in and look in the I don't think they even went inside the trailer and looked when he was reported missing. I'm trying to remember because it's been almost 3 years now. But I asked his wife if he had his glasses on, and I think she told me yes. And then when she talked to another local reporter that did a thing on their local community page, a write-up that somebody sent me because I wasn't allowed to be on the community page, that she said that he did not have them on. So I don't know. She might have just forgot. I don't know.
Interesting. I mean, I guess there should be an answer if they were left behind. But and how was his vision, or how do you know it to be?
I know he needed them for reading, but I'd seen some pictures, that they'd taken when he was out and about during the day, and he had them on. So I don't know if he just had bifocals like I do, so you don't have to keep putting them on and off. I don't know if that was the case or not. I mean, I'm sure we talked about it somewhere down the line, but it's one of those things that you don't think you're going to need to know.
So with all of this, Lou, what are the next steps? I mean, I think you said in the beginning, or not in the beginning, but you said earlier on that you've just kind of run out of knowing what to do. So what are the next steps?
We've tried to generate interest from several different law enforcement agencies to get involved in the case, and thus far have been unsuccessful. But like I said, I think we've gone as far as our private investigator can go. He's got a very complete and accurate report done, which again, I think is very convincing that this needs further investigation. Unfortunately, as far as I know right now, is absolutely nothing being done officially on the case. And that's too bad. But we would like to just generate some interest and get someone with law enforcement authority to look at this and question some people and conduct a more thorough investigation that has been done up until this point. And I think the family's owed that. I mean, if it turns out, okay, he wandered off and he's out in the area somewhere, that's okay. That's too bad. It's tragic if it happens. But if someone is criminally responsible, then the family, I think, is owed some answers also.
And Lou, we often hear follow the money when looking at cases. Does this one, in your opinion, have any element like that?
I don't know because we don't have access to financial records. Obviously, there's been no insurance because he's still alive officially. Who has access to his account? Because I'm assuming his VA checks are still arriving every month because he is still alive officially. Is that bank account intact? Has someone been withdrawing it? I don't know the answers to that. I think that's something that law enforcement could easily find out. But again, as far as I know, that hasn't been done. I don't know. They have not shared that with us in any event.
Is that typical that when somebody who is receiving checks from the VA, when they, I guess, go missing and they're not declared deceased, the checks still arrive?
I would assume, yes. I don't know why they would stop them. If people are adults, they don't have to be in any one particular place at any one particular point in time. I mean, we run into that occasionally, voluntary disappearances. I don't think that's the case in this case, but that does happen. So I don't believe that there would be any reason for them to stop the veterans checks. We've tried to get them interested in looking into it. We were unsuccessful, unfortunately. We tried the FBI. They don't have jurisdiction. As far as we're been advised, the state does not get involved unless invited in by the sheriff's department. So we're kind of stuck officially anyways. We're getting official involvement.
Well, I'm so sorry to hear that this is where it's at right now, and it's so tragic. And again, I hope people listen to this, and I hope that just something, maybe some piece of advice or something jogs someone's memory, or maybe somebody has access to cadaver dogs to donate for a search or drones or something. But I mean, the fact that like the VA won't investigate this, I mean, they're writing checks, like monthly checks, I imagine. To who?
Well, they're direct deposit probably.
Right.
But they don't care if someone is like not receiving them?
I can't answer that. As far as cadaver dogs go, that has been offered, and I don't believe some of the property has been allowed to be searched, to the best of our knowledge.
Oh, truly frustrating. Very sorry.
Yeah.
It's at this point.
Is there anything else you'd like to say on the record about Mike's disappearance or about Mike?
Just that, he would not walk away from everything that he had worked so hard for all of his life voluntarily. I know this for a fact. I don't know. I think he deserved better from the sheriff's department and from other people. I think we're going to try and get the funds together to put up a billboard down there to bring, awareness to the fact that he's still missing, because a lot of people don't even know. They don't know. I mean, so hopefully, something will turn up from that. And the cadaver dogs were offered, and we had the search set up, and we did have access to the land, but unfortunately, again, it rained and got rained out, and then we could not get permission to go back on the land again. That's why I was hoping to do it through the sheriff's department. That way they could probably get permission to go out there, but that didn't, work either. So I just feel like he was failed in so many ways.
Yeah, it's understandable. I mean, right down to not allowing a search on the property a second time when the circumstances for the first search were out of your control.
Correct.
So you missed your opportunity. It's so frustrating.
Yes, it is very frustrating. So I'm just hoping that, we can bring enough awareness to this that maybe somebody else will help us get something done down there.
The people who own the property that refuse to search a second time, do you think if they were offered some money, they would allow it?
So the neighboring land, I don't know if they would or not. I just know that we had gotten permission, and then after the sheriff's department did theirs, that the guy called our advocate and told her that she no longer had permission to go on his land and search. And then as for my brother's in-laws property, I would have to get a hold of his wife and ask her if we could get somebody to do it, if she'd let us go out there and do it. And actually, I'd probably have to go through her stepson, because I was told that she didn't really want to be involved with it anymore.
I think the biggest tragedy or shame in this thing is that a guy who's gave 20 years of his life to our country, being in the Navy, developed some issues probably as a result of that, and now we can't get anyone from the government to help find him. And that's really too bad. It really is.